Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I'm fired up. I've got another local guy. I love having local guys on the podcast. I've got Colonel Scot Heathman. Scott, how you doing today?
Good. I'm doing great.
Good.
What day is it? I'm retired. I don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. Every day's Saturday. Every day's Saturday for you. Today, what is today? Actually, it's Wednesday, it's August 17th, right? That's the day it is. Well, hey, it's so good to have you. You've got an amazing story, and really look forward to sharing that with our listeners and our followers. But just really the way and you've listened to some of the shows, I know, so would like to really dive into really what's made you the man you are today. There's a lot there. I know that's a big question, a pretty loaded question to start with, but there's a backstory there. So I'd love to start there if we can.
Well, I was born. That was a good thing.
That's a great thing.
Always a great thing to be alive. And I was born actually at Offutt Air Force Base. My dad was drafted, and so that's where I came into this world. Saw Star Wars at age 3 in 1977, so that put me on a track to, I want to be a pilot, and so most of my childhood, that was where my dream was. And eventually worked my way to ROTC up in Chicago at Illinois Tech, right on the south side of Chicago, and got a pilot slot and flew for most of my career in the Air Force. And I've had a number of jobs in the Air Force and a lot of leadership jobs here in the last probably 10 years, command jobs. Yeah. And then literally just retired just a few weeks ago. July 15th was our ceremony, and John Michelle, who he officiated, did a fantastic job. It was very comical, exactly like I wanted it.
High energy John that he is,
gosh.
right?
Yeah, he hit it out of the park. And we've been traveling ever since, all summer, just being on terminal leave. And now I'm trying to start a coaching and leadership business. I'm like, you know what? I want another challenge. And so I'm starting from the ground up again and enjoying it. So,
well, you think about what you've been through your careers. How long were you in the military?
Just over 25 years.
Okay, so 25 years. I mean, you've learned a ton about leadership, and you've had great leaders. Just a little bit, right? And so absolutely, that seems like to make a lot of sense. And I saw that your leadership mantra, which I loved, was be present, be bold, be innovative.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, what's that mean to you?
I talked about this during the retirement ceremony. That was the hardest speech to write, because you can go so many different ways with a retirement speech. You can start pointing at people, and I always like a talk where I learn something. And so I thought, you know what, maybe I'll tell people what I'd been about these 25 years. Now, that mantra really didn't come, I would say, into my public vision until maybe at my 12, 13-year point in my career, when I was starting to really take on some heavy leadership responsibilities. But for me, it really breaks down in kind of 3 areas that I find myself ebbing and flowing throughout any given day, any given week, any given month. They're not all balanced, but they're 3 important areas that kind of guided my leadership. And when I became a squadron commander, I laid it out on a mug. And once you do that, if you put it on the mug, it's for real, right? Yeah. So to me, being present was always about more than just passing people in the hallway and saying, what's up? Or just showing up to a meeting on time. It was about bringing your full self. Doesn't mean your best self, but at least your full self. Yep. You may not have 100% in the tank that day, but you're still bringing your full self to your day. It's maybe diving a little bit deeper with people. And I learned this from Cy Wakeman, who I'm a huge fan of, and she says, instead of saying what's up to people, she says, try asking people, what's your update? Like, so on a Wednesday, ask somebody, give me an update today. What's going on with you? I'm like, that is ingenious.
Yeah.
It gets the conversation flowing.
Well, absolutely it does, right? Because you're not just going to be like, yeah, it's great. That's the go-to, right? You actually get into a detailed conversation.
Absolutely. It's understanding maybe if, the times where I've been at the head of the table and I've had my commanders and leaders and experts around the table, it's understanding everybody's learning style, or which ones are introverts and extroverts, and how do I manage a meeting in such a way that I can keep them all included in the conversation and not let any one personality dominate maybe a certain decision. So to me, that presence is about not only understanding my needs, it's more so about understanding their needs and what we're going after. Being bold. I've been underestimated most of my life. Now, being 5'6", you tend to get underestimated a lot. And I do know I've got kind of young boy looks. General Michelle pointed that out during my retirement. I think he called me boy major or something like that. You know, and it's good in some things, but it is something that people have brought up. And I think, you know, when you meet somebody who's 6'5" and has a look about them, you treat them a little differently. So to me, about being bold was not only internally finding ways to maybe stretch myself in a way that I haven't done before, push the envelope of staying curious. That was always the go-to is if in doubt, just be curious, ask questions, you know, because the best decisions, if you want the best decisions, you need to ask better questions. Don't just rely on data, but actually ask the questions, get the context of what's going on. And so I've always tried to push the envelope in my personal self because I've always been it has felt like to me at times at a disadvantage. So I've got to find other ways to maneuver, and it might take some just good old-fashioned boldness to maybe bring somebody into my network or say I'm not the expert in this and be vulnerable enough as a leader to just say, hey, I don't know all this. Do you mind running this conversation? Because you seem to have, you know, the expertise here. I think not only one, does that really make people feel good that you've empowered them, but two, it shows everybody at the table, you're the kind of leader that's actually open. Yeah. And you're going to create that level of trust, which is really what we're all after. I don't tell people you need to earn my trust. I tell people you have it from day one. You can lose it. Now there are situations out there, but I've always succumbed to the philosophy that you don't need to earn it with me. You have it. I will give it to you from day one. I respect you that much. Being innovative. This isn't to me like inventing something. It's not, you know, selling something on QVC or anything like that. To me, being innovative was about working within a very hierarchical, bureaucratic, policy-driven environment, and how can I be successful and get after the things that I want to do. It may take some very creative thinking or means to do something to get after a mission set or to get after the goals we want to achieve. It's important that you find a way to do that. I brought a couple books that I want to leave with you because
thank you.
This has been part of my growth over the years. But this book, Orbiting the Giant Hairball, by Gordon McKenzie. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I've not.
So Gordon McKenzie was an employee of Hallmark just in Kansas City for 30 years. And he wrote this really goofy book. And funny enough, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force had this on his reading list. So I pulled it down and I'm like, this is an amazing book. To him, he describes a hairball in an organization as each hair is another policy that you keep piling on. And over years and years and years, we keep piling on these things, but we never take away. So the hairball grows, right? Your job as a person within an organization is to figure out how to stay in that right orbit. You know, because if you come in too brash, too out of sync, this and that, the system's going to eat you up. You're out of orbit and you're just going to float away. If you're in too close, you become part of that machine and you're now not creating an environment where we need to think differently. We need to maybe be 2 degrees left of center to look at this differently, get a different perspective. If you're in a nice orbit with it, you're able to kind of work within this crazy bureaucracy because it's hard. Yeah. But I respect the bureaucracy because I do need it to a point, right? To get the things done, I still need my team, my leadership, my higher level leadership to get things done. But I may find a different crazy way to go get it done. You know, so I won't go too far, but I'll push the envelope. That's just the way I've always been. And I think a lot of my leaders would say that about me is that, yeah, Scott thinks differently. You know, he just does, and I think that's what makes me unique. I mean, that's feedback from them. Yeah. So
what I love about that is that be present, be bold, be innovative. You know, you mentioned it didn't come to you for 12, 13, 14 years, and I think as humans, we go around, like you hear people talk about these missions and, you know, we have ours here on the back of the microphones, future greater than your past, right? And I think we hear that and it's like, oh, well, Brett just had that forever or Scott's just had that forever. But I think it comes with trial and error. Yeah. But I also think it comes from being present, right? being bold. I got to go out there and make things happen, and I got to go read books. I got to be a student of the game, but I have to be present. You got to take action, right? And then being innovative is always thinking of a different way to do something. To your orbit, comments, right? And so when I hear those three words for you, it really hits me to all the people that are out there listening that maybe they're looking for that purpose or they're looking for that mission. I think sometimes it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, the first leadership position as a young officer, you're kind of put in. First couple years in the military, you're usually like just trying to learn your craft, be really good at your craft. But you're an officer, so you're still expected to lead, whether that's yourself, whether that's 5 people, or it could be a couple hundred. But when you get into a job called flight command, you might have a handful of people. Some flights are bigger. It just depends on the organization. And had a great leader who sat us down and he gave us this book called Fish. Now, this book's been around forever, and it's about the Pike Street Fish Market out in Seattle.
Okay.
If you ever seen them, they throw the fish out. Yeah. A lot of famous people have done that. But it's a story about that where there were 4 areas, and this is kind of where I got the presence from. The first one was choose your attitude. And I think you talk about that a lot, right? You got it, regardless of what's going on, it's a choice, all right? So choose your attitude, be present, make their day, and play. So those were the first 4 criteria that a mentor kind of really laid into me that really resonated. And again, over time, I kind of, morphed to my own maxims and things that I thought would be successful to me. But those 4 things I think are resonant within be present, be bold, be innovative. Yep. You can have fun within those. You got to choose your attitude within those. You got to recognize people when they're being innovative or they found a different way to do a process when somebody was telling them, well, this is just the way we've always done it.
Yeah, which I hate that comment, by the way. It's just the way we've always done it.
Yes.
That didn't mean squat, man.
It actually motivates me to actually get under your skin.
Right, exactly. Now I'm going to do stuff that's going to make you mad. Yep. So, and you said the choose attitude. I talk about that all the time. As you said, it's really the top left pillar, if you will, of the circuits of success. But one of my favorite words in the dictionary is the word choice. And I'm a huge believer in choice, right? We choose our attitude. We choose our response to circumstances, whether good or bad, right? Yeah. We can do if you can get great news and can still go off the deep end. And where they say that people are most susceptible to failure after a major accomplishment. And so whether we're winning a World Series, we're retiring from a great career, you get that client out there. I always tell people, just be careful, right? Be careful. Yes, do we want to celebrate? Yes, we want to be in the moment. But also then stay focused and make the choice to keep your eye on the ball because it can knock you off really, really quickly.
Oh,
so when you hear that word choice for you, what comes to mind?
I think it starts with how your day starts. That's the moment that we get to control.
Yeah.
I think of the word control as well. I'm constantly trying to think about what are the things that I can control and what are the things that I'm not able to control? Because I think that's where almost turning yourself into a victim comes into play. You choose something you can't control, and now you become a victim of it, and you head down this bad path. And I think a lot of wellness coaches will talk about that. You do have a choice in so many things in this life. And, when I talk to folks that are maybe having a tough time, we get into that spot of control what you can control, and let's not worry about the things you can. There are so many things that happen to all of us in this life. To me, it's a little bit of a stoic mentality.
Yep.
Live your life as if you find out you're terminally ill tomorrow. How are you going to live today? It's some people don't like thinking about maybe, heading down that path, but we all do have an expiration date.
Yep.
That's something we can't control. So what I can control today is how am I going to live Wednesday? What am I going to do this morning? It may be just yard work today, and that's okay. You don't have to like everything either. The circumstances. I'm not saying, just be joyfully, gleefully all your life and nothing. No, bad things happen to people all the time. But I think it's being able to recognize and understand and be able to manage what is happening, those emotions, And it's okay. It's okay to have a really crap day.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay that maybe it's a crap week, month, couple years. But find ways that you can separate what you can control and not control. And I think your choice will be a little bit easier to make.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you did have that crap day, right? Yeah. You've had that crap day, and you had it on
a couple years.
Yeah. So an extreme level that thankfully, knock on wood, I have not had. But you had a bad day, right? And so kind of walk us through that. So just to give the listeners some perspective of what you've dealt with. So when they see this guy that's got great energy, great attitude, you know, full of all this wisdom, but what was the crap, right? Yeah. The stuff that you had to deal with.
I think it'd be hard for people to see that I needed a walker a couple years ago. I couldn't see. I had an eye patch. I had pretty big, well, I still have a really big scar around my head. But in 2018, we were driving, my wife and I we lived in Spokane at the time. We were driving to one of the unit holiday parties. Every unit has them every year. So we were driving out to one, and we got rear-ended at a stoplight. Not too bad, but I got some whiplash. And through the process of them looking at the damage that had been done on my neck, and they did an MRI, of course, and an X-ray and all that. And this is the funny thing. I got a call as I'm sitting in a pre-op appointment for my wife who was going in for hip surgery. And I got a call from the flight doctor, and he said, "Hey, I got your MRI back. Do you know you have a brain tumor?" And I'm like, no, I got to go because they're calling us back. You know, like I had no time to process that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm here for my wife. I'm not here for me right now. You know? So I walked back. My wife had already been in the doctor's office.
Can I pause you real quick on that? So just think of that, like have things happen, right? Like people I know call them God winks. I mean, so here's this, I got rear-ended. We can look at it, choice, and go back to the word choice. Yeah.
I was pissed about that car accident.
Pissed about that, but now think about that. That might have saved your life. Because would you have gone in and got an MRI, right?
No. I mean, most people in the military are generally healthy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you would expect that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we just don't get MRIs just to get MRIs, you know? I have no idea even to this day how long that brain tumor's been there. I know roughly the size. It was about the size of a ping pong ball, maybe just a little bit smaller.
Which is big in the brain.
Which is big. Anything in the brain, though, not good. You know, that shouldn't be there. And it was deep, pushing up against my brainstem. Your brainstem is supposed to be nice and kind of round, and it was actually deforming it. But I had no symptoms, to my knowledge. Now, I don't know if I was a boiling frog, and maybe there were subtle ones. I just wasn't picking up on them, but I had no clue. So when we got back in the car and we started talking about it, I just broke down. I was like, what does this mean? Like, I don't think I could even point to anyone in my life prior to that had one. So I'm like, who do I even talk to? And I'm the kind of person like, okay, let me find somebody that had one. Maybe you can provide, you know.
Yeah.
A visual learner, right? Yeah. I need to understand a little bit, but I was lost. And not saying that when these things happen to you, you won't have the same reaction. I think that's expected. But then you have choices still, right? So I could just play the victim for the next couple years or however long I'm dealing this, or I could educate myself, or, you know, I'm not going to just fake it. You know, I'm going to accept it and then move forward. So I said, okay, next few steps here is we got to start seeing specialists, you know, because they're going to ask for all kinds of MRIs and things like that. I only had 6 more months left in Spokane, and I already knew that I had been picked to be the commander here at Scot Air Force Base in the summer of 2019. So I called my 2-star leadership and my 4-star leadership, and certainly cried over the phone. I mean,
sure,
you know, they cry, you know, man, I'm getting worked. Woo. It takes you back. They were so amazing.
Yeah.
Everything was, we're going to work through this. We, not you, or it was, we'll work through this, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a string of MRIs like almost every month. I have this T-shirt that I bought that says, "I've had so many MRIs now, I stick to the fridge." You know? I just bought that recently because I got another one coming up in October. But I've always tried to find at least some humor into this too, because I think it helps me process a little bit better. You know what? I can still choose how I'm going to act each day. I can still choose to show up to work. I still had to go back to work after hearing that news. I didn't get the day off, you know, and could I have asked for it? Absolutely. Like, that wasn't something my boss said, well,
get to work.
No, no. I had a wonderful boss. But I kept it very tight, a very tight circle around this, because I started thinking, who really needs to know this right now? Just a handful of people. It doesn't affect anybody else, and there's nothing happening right now.
Because you were still going on, no symptoms. It wasn't like you had loss of balance, different things like that. Okay,
you know, up until that point, and then they put me under what's called do not fly status. So just until they could kind of see what was going on, I didn't know that would probably be the last time I flew an airplane was in wintertime of 2018, but. I got into the simulator a couple times in the spring of 19, just because I'm like, gotta have my hands on something. I still had to take a check ride, which is like a driver's exam every year that you got to get. And so I still took my check ride, you know, and passed. But again, those folks that were around me didn't know. You know, I wanted them to focus on our mission. I was the number 2 in command at that time, you know, so I was working for a wing commander. I had a responsibility in the organization, but I also knew that I could still, he gave me the space to take care of myself too. So, and then I instantly surrounded myself with the types of people that I needed. So like I started reaching out to that network of the optimisms, the ones that would hold me accountable for not making myself and turning myself into a victim. But the ones that would also be empathetic, right? So I think it's important that if you face something in your life, you look at the network that you have and start bringing those types of people that you would want to have in your life and bring them closer, because they're going to provide the humor for you. They're going to provide the shoulder for you. They're going to provide just the ear for you. And it was great. You know, there were times I needed somebody just to be sarcastic to me and make fun of me that I got a brain tumor, right? Yeah. It was actually a little bit comforting, you know. So we went through this journey in Spokane. I arrived in late June here. I took command on the 25th of June in 2019, and then a week later I had another MRI down at Barnes-Jewish. And so I had worked to get a new neurosurgeon here in St. Louis from Spokane, and got referred to an incredible one. And you know, one of the best cut men in the industry, as his colleagues say. And anytime I mention Dr. Chicoine's name, they're like, "Oh, he's one of the best." You know, he's kind of the godfather from what I've learned. You know,
it's good to have that in the area.
Oh yeah, and it's great to have that type of capabilities around here. You know, it's not that far of a drive to go in, but you know, my wife would go in, or there's certain days where I could, you know, just throw myself in. But it reached a point in January of 2020. I'd had another MRI, and the doctor said, "Hey, this thing is growing, and we may reach a point here where we're going to have to do something." And we had talked about surgery, gamma knife surgery, fractionated radiation. You know, there's only so many things you can do, but I kind of had a lot of options here. But we don't know how things would turn out after that. You know, there's death.
And did you know it wasn't cancer at that time, or no? So it could have been cancer. It could have been benign.
Yeah, they couldn't do pathology on it where it was located. You know, you'd have to do surgery to do that. So in 2020, in January of 2020, I started getting some numbness in my face, on the right side of my face. I started losing a little bit of dexterity on the left side of my body. Like something didn't feel right in my fingers. And called the doctor, and he's like, I think we need to make a move here. And he's like, "What would you like to do?" And I'm like, "What would I like to do?"
You tell me.
But I tell you, that was the process though, because everybody's different, right? And so ultimately it is your choice. Surgery. You know, I think it had grown too big for gamma knife, so that we kind of took that one off the table. Or we could try radiation. But the only true way, I think, to get after the pathology of this thing, because I wanted to know what it was to really do surgery.
Yep.
So, and I think with my health and my young age, I was 45 at the time, I was a good candidate for surgery. If I was in my 60s, 70s, maybe not, and other health conditions and things like that. But so we went into surgery in February 13th and
of 2020.
Of 2020. This is before all the pandemic and everything else. Like, that's not even on my mind.
No.
I know that it's hit the coast of California and, it's being talked about in the news, but so a couple days before that, had the mentor that gave me this book, General Holt, who was at the Cardinals game.
Okay, yeah.
And he showed up, and he was going to be there for blocking and tackling if something went bad. That way my wife could just focus on taking care of herself and the family, and he could deal with, Air Force stuff and things like that. So he showed up, flew in from Seattle. We had a great night. We went out for a drink night before. Nothing too crazy.
Sure.
I should say a couple nights before. I didn't drink the night before. You're not supposed to do that.
No.
Yeah. It was a couple nights before. Went and got my hair cut, shaved real tight, and I still going to the same barber. She still remembers that day. And went in for surgery at 5 a.m. And you're there for like 2 hours, and there's like a whole bunch of other people waiting for surgery. And I wasn't scared until they start wheeling you back. I was like, okay. And then I got into the surgery room, and there's like 10, 15 people in this room, massive surgery room, just like you expect, clean as can be. And then there's this resident, and she starts reading, hey, this is Jeremiah Scott Heathman, 45-year-old male. And all of a sudden, I was totally cool. I was like, you know what? This is like a pre-mission brief. I've been through this. She's doing
It's not their first rodeo.
Yeah, I've gone through thousands of sorties of flying, and you always do a pre-mission brief. Here's what we're doing today. Here's the weather. Here's who we're going to meet, or here's the cargo we got. Here's the sequence. She's laying it all out. I'm like, oh, yeah, I felt like I was part of the crew.
That's what I do.
Yeah, and then the anesthesiologist puts the mask on, and they turn me over to my left side, and I remember saying two things to him, and then
Lights
I don't
out.
remember anything. I said, whatever you do, don't take out my movie quotes. I've memorized a lot of them. And I remember telling everybody, because a couple of the residents came in and the doctors came in, and they said, this was a great quote you said. I said, I want everybody to do real good.
Just do real good.
Do real good. And I was gone like within 30 seconds. And it was 10 and a half hours.
Oh my goodness.
Surgery. Yeah. So my wife is getting a call every 45 minutes for 10 and a half hours. So, and it went pretty good. They got a good portion of it out. There's a little bit just based on location they couldn't get. I ended up losing my hearing on my right side because there was some tumor wrapped around the blood supply. I still, to this day, cannot feel, if you draw a line down the center of my face, most of this side. Like I have.
So you touch that, you don't know you're touching it.
This feels kind of dead. This feels like numbness, Novocaine all day long.
Okay.
Like on a pain scale, to me, it's like a 3, but you might say it's like a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Like it's nerve pain. These nerves are huge in your face.
Oh yeah.
And they heal very slowly. And I can't chew in that side because I can't feel my teeth. I can't feel half my tongue. I can't feel my nostrils. So you can COVID test me over here, and I'm good.
Show it all the way up there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, some things I wasn't expecting, although we talked about some of this. It just hit. I couldn't walk hardly at all. I could get up with a walker and needed help. I couldn't see. I had double vision. So right eye was a little bit off. So the first couple months I wore the eye patch because it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was reading like this. And so in the months to follow, I came out of my command job, and the number 2 rolled in to be the commander. Guy who, is a brother to me, Joe. And he'd been there before. He had a 3 or 4 month stint as a commander because we had a gap when I came in. So he just took over. I mean, that's what you do. You create an organization that something happens, the leader,
Yep.
who can take care of the team. I didn't have any worries about that. I wondered, And they knew me well enough, so they took away my computer, my work phone. They didn't want any distractions. They wanted me to focus. But leading up to that, leading up to surgery, I did call someone who had been through a brain surgery, a little different. And I said, how did you manage communication like with your team? Like, when did you tell your team? Because even with my team at Scot, I had not told really anybody but my closest commanders about it. And that was 5 of them, and then our vice commanders. That makes 6 total. I didn't tell our squadron commanders until about a week prior. And I just said, hey, I just want you focused on your people and the mission. I'm going to be fine. Prayers are good. Love and support's great. Send it my way. I could use it,
Yeah.
But, of course, that was an awful conversation. It was emotional.
Yeah.
But the outpouring was just incredible. Even though I couldn't see, I couldn't hardly talk, there's so many things. But you have a choice. Again, are you going to play the victim card and say,
poor me,
why me every day? Now, not to say that I didn't ask that question. I think anybody in that situation would say that. An athlete that goes down for a life or a year-long injury might say, why me?
Yeah.
I absolutely expect that reaction. But the really good ones don't stay there that long. They move through it.
Can I ask a question? So I hear that, right? And that sounds easy to say. I'm not going to say why me, and I have a choice. And
it's hard.
People can sit here driving down like, all right, well, these guys are talking about choices. But it's hard, right? You're dealing with just terrible stuff. And so what was it like when it's you, it's Scot Heathman sitting in a bed by himself and the dark thoughts come in, right? How did you get through the dark thoughts to the positive thoughts?
I always tried to learn something. I actually was trying to read pretty early on. Even when I was in the ICU, I was able to get to a point where I could text some people and things like that. But I always try to go to a place of learning, like, again, just being curious. Like, I can sit here with this thought, but I don't want this thought because this makes me uncomfortable. So let's just go somewhere where I can go learn something. And this book, funny enough, this was the first book I read when I could, I was holding it up like this, and page by page, looking at it. It took me forever to read. I used to be a really fast reader, and now it takes me a little bit longer. This is an interesting book, this Keep Going, because it's about how an artist deals with the monotony of, create something, and then they do, and now they got to do it again.
Yeah.
Again. How do you keep going when bad things happen, when you hit a block in your life, and this and that? And he's got like 10 different things that he talks about in here, just different things. One of them is every day's Groundhog Day. I was about to hit my Groundhog Day, where I'm literally sitting. I'm going to have to wake up, go downstairs, sit in a chair, probably take 2 or 3 naps today. I would love to be able to get out and walk, but I just don't feel like it today. How do you deal with that Groundhog Day? I like to go learn something. I like to watch something that maybe makes me laugh. I like to listen to music that doesn't depress me, but I listen to a lot of Public Enemy. Funny enough, I went to my old school rap days.
Exactly.
I found a new love of things that I had loved before, but maybe more intently paid attention to it. And I knew, even with the pandemic going on, that's the furthest thing from my mind. Like, I got to just kind of sit with myself and get centered again. And it's incredibly hard, but the best thing to do is go learn from others, whether that's listening to a podcast, watching a video, maybe making a phone call to somebody. I got into meditation, which I'd never really done a lot. Wasn't disciplined enough to do it. I'm kind of
it was hard
for me to hold my attention. This forced me to hold my attention for once. And it humbled me too, because I'm all thrust, sometimes a lot of, good vectors here and there. I move pretty fast, and I'm motivated to do things and get after action. But this, for the first time in my life, slowed me down enough to just appreciate it. It was almost like the Ferris Bueller moment, right? Because it might pass you by.
Yeah.
So just I started enjoying the things that I took for granted. A walk.
So how do you do that though if you didn't get that little knock, right? That major surgery and you were forced to slow down to do that? Because a lot of us, thankfully, right, aren't forced to do that.
Yeah.
So how do you, and maybe it's hard to answer, I don't know, because you were forced to do it, but looking back, if you could go back to 2017, 2015, that Scott.
Yeah, how could I have offered that to
myself? How
myself?
could you have offered that to yourself then when you didn't know what you know now?
I think it would have been incredibly hard to figure this out, because I'll just say right up front, I think we all need life coaches.
Yeah.
Like I wish everybody had a coach.
I agree.
Not a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, spouse, mom or dad. I'm talking about a third party perspective that can listen and ask you very tough questions that you probably haven't asked yourself yet. Not talking about a psychologist necessarily either, but just somebody who can maybe ask beautiful questions that you probably haven't really spent some time with before, and then get after these things. And that's hard. So, we say a lot to people like, oh, go find a mentor. That's incredibly hard to find a mentor. And that's a tough phrase to say to somebody. But I think where you can start is with peers. And I think a lot of people look at peers as competitors. Airmen look at peers. Everybody's trying to get to that next promotion, right? There's competition in everything. But there's also a lot that a peer can do for you. Especially somebody that has a completely different perspective than you, maybe different upbringing, maybe different culture, maybe different demographic, whatever it may be. Some of the best mentors thought I was their mentor, but they're actually mentoring me. I have a couple airmen where I'm like, and I tell them this, I'm like, you guys have no clue. You guys are mentoring me. I'm not the one mentoring you. So it really is amazing to see where these superpowers from peers and others can actually invade your life in a positive way. And I think that's where I would start, is through peer group. Maybe it's a church group. Maybe it's you're volunteering together. Go to a non-traditional entity outside of work where you can maybe find some perspective.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in, it's actually funny, I think you're reading my notes here, I wrote down support system and mentors versus coaches.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a difference. That support system is my support system at home. I know I've got my support system at home. My wife is my rock. She's there. She supports me. She challenges me. There's that. Then there's mentors, people I can learn from, right? Whether it's books I read or podcasts I listen to or just people that I know that I can, hey, I got questions, man, on this, right?
Yeah.
Never think I know it. But then there's the level that I've had for years of coaching. I physically put my money where my mouth is. I hire that person to not tell me what I need to hear, but to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, right? Yeah. And I think that there's a big difference in that. And if you look at the best athletes in the world or the biggest business leaders in the world, they have that person in their corner that they're paying money for.
Yeah.
That's there for them.
And it doesn't always have to be someone that is, like in my world, a superior. To me, I would look for a general officer. No, it could be somebody lower ranking than you, if you're going to use a hierarchical type structure. I do think there is a difference, because a coach may be looking to guide you a little bit more towards a vision that you're trying to get to, and that maybe not necessarily dealing with a personal situation, a medical situation like I described here. But I also had to kind of put myself in perspective that, look, I'm just one story, and I think that's why I decided to be a little bit more public about what happened. Maybe my brain tumor, to somebody, it's the loss of a boyfriend, girlfriend, an 18-year-old who thinks that's the end of their world. So you do have to put things in perspective. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, we should feel bad for him. He just went through brain surgery. My situation in life is nowhere near as tragic. It might be, because that's all you've experienced to this point. So I never wanted to get into a situation where people are starting to compare injuries with each other. Like, well,
Mine's worse than yours. Yeah.
It's like in Jaws, we're comparing all the scars, No, it's not about that. But as the senior leader, as the commander of an Air Force base, I had a very unique opportunity to show them I'm vulnerable too. I mean, that's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah. And you cannot generate trust like you can with a vulnerable leader.
Yeah.
Like, you should be vulnerable enough to walk into a meeting someday and say, you know what, I just want to let everybody know I am off my game today. I do want to have this meeting, but if I'm quieter than normal, don't take this personal. I'm just off. I'm okay though. Or I might need we might need to do some putt-putt golf today, just later in the day. I'm just saying, but go through your day. Just by saying that nugget, you now have taken down the walls. The conspiracy theories are going away about what's happening with you. And they now see you as human, not a CEO, as a wing commander. And for the first time they go, they have things going on in their life too. They are human.
They're human.
Of course we are. But we tend to forget that when
I think it's
ranks.
Don't you think as men too, I think sometimes we want to be that tough guy. And then so I'm raising, my wife and I, we have 4 boys, and it's like, I want my boys to understand that it's okay to be transparent. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have weaknesses and share those things. I share, which I'm sure off podcast you could help me with. My weakness was this fear of flying that manifested in anxieties and just different things that I dealt with for years. I mean, I went 8 years without flying and just flew just last month for the first time. Really? And I'm talking to a guy that's flown, a million times, 1 billion miles. And
let's go fly sometime.
Absolutely, yeah. I know. I got to get used to. I'm getting on another airplane on Monday, but so you got to get used to that. But again, I think I always struggle with. Well, I can't share that. I'm tough. I'm this leader. But I found the more I shared my airplane, my anxiety, the more a person across the table with me would share their thing. Right, that whatever their airplane was, they would share that. And I think those words, transparency and vulnerability, are huge.
I think they are. I'm a Patriots fan. That's hard to say in this region of the.
No, hey, I'm a Tom Brady guy, so that may be hard for you. I'm a big Tom Brady guy.
It's been interesting to watch how he's been given a little bit more ability to be open, and the vulnerability is coming out. But you know what? He's always been that way, though. This didn't happen overnight. Yeah. But when you,
I'm curious what he's walked away from right now. What are these personal reasons he's left the team for? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't care. Like, we all have these things, right? So why is it our business? But
it's not.
Yeah, but we like to think. Yeah. What's the greatest athlete in the world? Doing. But it was fun to watch his series. And look, whether you love or hate Tom Brady, you got to respect the guy being honest about what was going on. I mean, I think he killed a lot of sports writers' stories with that series, and I think he wanted to do that. I think he reached a point where he's been wanting to do this for a while, and this was a great outlet for him. And I think he did it with a lot of respect. He didn't pull punches when he didn't have to, But so I respect that. I'm looking forward to watching the Jeter one too. I think the Jeter one's probably pretty good. I do like these kind of myopic pieces because I think this is when they're at their most vulnerable and
we're getting to go in the brain of one of the arguably the greatest athlete, like you said, of all time, and what made them tick. It's incredible.
Yeah, if you at least just see behind the scenes a little bit. I like to say below the waterline, right? The iceberg, right? We all judge each other on the 10% we see, and boy, if you could get just a little bit below that iceberg, that's the leaders I actually appreciated the most.
I mean, you get the Jordan one, you get the Brady one, now you get the Jeter one. It was incredible. I don't know. Who's next? Michael Phelps? I'd like to see a Michael Phelps one.
Michael Phelps would be good.
I mean, he's the GOAT, right? I mean, think of 18 medals or whatever he's got. Wayne Gretzky would be awesome.
He seems to be a pretty private. I don't know him, but
right.
It's killing me, as I'm going through everything with the brain surgery and something. He escapes my mind now. The St. Louis Blues player who went down with a injury 3 years ago. I
don't know the Blues well enough. Tarasenko or
mean,
We'll have to add it to
no
the show
disrespect
notes.
to Blues fans, but
Exactly. We're just going to get murdered by
he had this like fluke injury, and I'm going to look him up again because again, my short-term memory is a little off due to some of the meds I'm on, but he went down with a kind of a life-threatening injury, which pulled him out of the game. And I thought about him, honestly. I'm like, you know what? I would love to just sit down and talk with him and share stories of how he dealt with it, because when you look at, again, Tom Brady going down with a season-ending injury, where I felt was like, yeah, I wanted to be with my team. I felt like I let them down. And that's such an awful thing to say about yourself, right? Some people would say, oh, that's a little bit selfish. No, I don't look at it that way. I just viewed it as, this is my responsibility to go down as the leader. I'm not supposed to do that, Yeah. And just like any great quarterback, I want to be back in that game. And so after the surgery, I literally was in a walker, eye patch. The eye patch looked kind of cool, but I just started off with a walker, and funny enough, so I briefly talked about my wife, when she was going to have hip surgery in January of 2019. She actually had a full hip replacement in November of 19. So before my surgery, she had a full hip replacement and healed up enough to the point where, okay, my turn now. I'm going under. And so she's, my mom, friends would be out there walking with me. And little by little, finally got rid of that walker, got the cane. And my vision started to get a little bit clearer. It was clear when I looked straight up, but it was blurry when I looked straight out. It started to come down, and I saw a couple eye experts, and they said, it's going to be okay. It's going to come back into alignment. About 4 months later, it did.
So right now, you and I are looking at each other.
Yep, we're good. I've had a couple prescription changes, but I didn't have to get any prisms and things like that to really adjust.
And did you wear glasses before?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. So pretty normal there. Periphery, I'm good. Like I said, don't have any hearing on this side. Vestibular is a little shaky at times, but that was to be expected with all the ear work the ENT doctor had to do when they had me open, and because he had to make some room for the neurosurgeon to get after that tumor. And then once we did the pathology on it, they said no cancer, but it's an aggressive growing tumor, so we got to really watch it. And they couldn't get it all. They got about like 80% of it. They said, we would like to go after the rest of this with radiation. So here I get done with surgery. I had a surgery on the 13th of February, out of the hospital on the 16th of February. Spent the next 2 months, getting my feet back underneath me a little bit. A lot of occupational therapy right over here. Mm-hmm. Occupational, physical, speech. Luckily, a lot of that came back. I feel like I slur. It feels like there's a tennis ball in my mouth, or like my face is sliding off. But I know when you see
I would have no idea.
I look fairly normal, I guess, if whatever normal is.
Right.
But I knew that I was going to go down this path of radiation. I'm like, oh, here's another battle. All right, you got to gear up. And so I actually got to the point where I was running again, about July timeframe. I started jogging.
Wow.
And I actually took a practice physical therapy test just to see if I could do it, sit-ups, push-ups, and run. I'm like, okay, I think I can pass this now. I didn't run a straight line. I was kind of all over the place, and but I stayed in my lane pretty good. And but it was just me. I would go there on a Saturday, or I'd walk on the soccer field. I'd do some balance exercises and things like that they taught me to do. But it was hard. It was really hard. But I knew in August timeframe I'd need to go back into radiation. So August 10th I started radiation, and what that encompassed was 30 rounds.
August 10th as of last year, or as in like 7 days ago? Okay, 2020.
Yeah. So 6 months after the surgery, healed up enough to go back down to St. Louis. So I drove every day back and forth to the Sightman Center downtown St. Louis. See my buddy Lamont, who checks you in, and he's a huge Cardinals fan. But boy, you couldn't ask for anybody better at that front desk just to get you a high five. Because when you go in that waiting area, you're there with people who are terminal, people who are getting chemo on top of radiation. I mean, you're now the customer.
Yeah.
And you see the bell.
Got to ring the bell.
Yep.
So where are you at today? So what is, as we fast forward to that?
Yeah. Went through the radiation. Radiation is not a good thing. It does damage to good cells too. So I think that kind of hurts some things in the face and that. But, I knew that was a possibility. You got to now manage what you got. I stopped long ago trying to get back to my pre-surgery normal and say, you know what, this isn't about pre-surgery normal anymore. It's about living life with what you got now.
New normal.
Yeah, it's a little different. Brain's rewiring itself and healing and doing good. So far, they haven't seen any growth. So I'm now doing about every 9 months. They've been extended from 6 months to 9 months, which is a good thing.
It's great.
Yep. So I'll go down and get another picture taken, meet with everybody. I'll stay with the neurologist too to kind of help see how we can manage the pain but doing good. I don't want to say like that was the only reason why I decided to retire. I think it was a big reason because I wanted to make sure that I'm able to center myself a little bit more. Also be there for my family. We had moved every year, every 2 years for the last decade plus. I've got a special needs kid who's on the autism spectrum, and I'm like, I don't want to move him again. And you got to think about that. He's a
How old
senior.
is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's a senior this year at Mascuda.
Yep.
This is the longest school system he's ever been in, ever. 2 years up to that point was the longest time he'd spent in any school. And a lot of times it was just a year because we were moving.
Yeah.
And I think he's looking at college at Webster. He wants to get into film and that. I'm like, I want to be around for that.
Yeah.
And have that time and freedom. So I decided, what can I be doing after the military? Well, my love and passion, my why is to elevate others. Like that's where my joy is, right. So create.
But you have 25 years of showing that because that's what got you to be a commander at one of the largest Air Force bases in the country.
Yeah. I love
is elevating others.
Here. I love this community. I love the fact that we get to stay here and bought a house in Shiloh, and we're loving this. And we're just right down the road.
Yeah.
But it's been. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's awesome.
No regrets.
Well, here's my takeaways, man. You got things, right? You got these big bags. When people talk about carrying these bags, whether you call them your skeletons, whatever, these things in your closet. But you've got these bags that you carry around with you. And it's amazing to me that I hope the listeners can hear from this incredible story that you've got all these reasons why you can have a victim attitude, right? All the things you got to deal with in your life. And you've chosen, go back to that word, right? You've chosen to not do that. And I think that's just shows you the power of the human body. I mean, think about what you've dealt with, right? Literally, your sight has come back. You've cut your head open and gone into your brain. And I mean, it's just amazing the power that we have, right? That we sometimes just let it sit on the shelf and we don't go do anything with it. And
it's truly amazing.
It really is. And so that's what I would just, try to challenge people and leave with people today is just, man, we've got this amazing world we live in. And if we can turn this crap off, right? Turn off if those people aren't watching, but turn off your cell phone of the notifications and turn off these TVs and stop getting all the crap that's absolutely dealt to us every single day and start thinking about the things that we're grateful for, the personal mission that we can have and how strong our bodies really are. But it comes back to us taking the choice and taking the action to go do something about it. Well, and that's what you've done.
You got to believe in it, right?
Yeah, there you go, baby. Teddy Lasso.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I love Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
But you do. You have to believe in it. There are so many people working against you that are on social media or new. I'm going to surround myself with the right things and making the positive deposits and get rid of that negative side. It's still going to be there, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not in a debit.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in a credit on the other side.
So I'm into that.
That's the key, I think, right there is. And I didn't do it alone. So when you cannot do all this alone. You've got to surround yourself with some people. And if you don't know where to go, start at home, start with a caretaker, start with a best friend from college you haven't talked to in 10 years. Reach out, reach out.
Yep.
And there's so much help out there. Sometimes the menu's a little too big. I think people get, a little flabbergasted by, oh my gosh, there's so much help, mental health help and this and that. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple. And there's a lot of services out there that are free And this is somebody that can listen, a professional.
Yep.
If you need to start there, I'm fully on board with that kind of stuff.
Love it. Well, Colonel Scot Heathman, where can we find more of you, man? Are you on social media? You got websites?
Yeah,
where you at?
I mean, so most of the things you can look up just J. Scot Heathman. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on Facebook. Like I said, I'm just starting a business called Elevating Others. So elevating-others.com. You'll find me out there. Like I said, I'm trying to grow this next venture, and I'm loving the process.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much, one, for being here today, but thank you for 25 years of your service. And I think I would like to end with one more thing. You had a pretty cool day. Those that can't, well, maybe on this camera right here, we can see that Cardinal hat on the right. It's got my boy Jason Isringhausen on there.
Yeah.
And you had a pretty cool experience with Jason, didn't you?
Yeah, it was the surprise squad, the KMOV surprise squad, and they
which is the Channel 4 News here locally in St. Louis.
Gosh. Yeah, it was. I didn't expect it. It was completely unexpected. They got me. That's hard to do. They surprised me, and Jason came out. He, delivered a baseball and said, "Hey, you're going to go throw out the first pitch." And it was the first game the Cardinals had under the pandemic where they finally let people back in.
Wow.
And they flew in one of my mentors and threw a strike. It was beautiful. I was not going to throw a ball like 50 Cent or, I watched all those videos because I was like, I am going to show this team I can throw this baseball. But it was just a beautiful day. And Paul Goldschmidt gave me a beautiful message. I was just sad I never got to meet them. It was still under COVID, the pandemic. And I would have loved to have just said thank you to him again. But at some point, we'll find a way.
That's right.
But,
we'll make that happen, man. We will either go grab lunch, or if you're a golfer, you golf.
Swinging a club is a little
tough right now. All right. Well, maybe we'll go grab we'll go grab a drink. We'll bring Izzy along and we'll make it happen.
Bourbon
man.
anytime.
So that's right. Let's do it. Well, again, man, thanks so much for being with us on the Circuit of Success. Tons of takeaways today for me, and I know for our listeners as well. And just appreciate you and your service, man.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you for having me here today.